Our draft coverage keeps on rolling here at Locked On Blue Jackets as we've got Tony Ferrari here to talk about whether Adam Fantilli could maybe be a better fit for the Blue Jackets than Connor Bedard.
Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to bring you news stories, the good, the bad, and the ugly about the Columbus Blue Jackets. Thank you for making this your first listen every day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms. We're also over on YouTube, so if you want to hit the subscribe button over there, then it helps me out, it helps you out. You get notified when new episodes go live. Everybody wins. I also want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. Make every moment more and visit fanduel.com/lockedon today to get started. Like I said in the cold open, today we are continuing our draft coverage, and we are talking about a guy that in maybe any other draft would be the consensus first overall, but because Connor Bedard exists, that's kind of a moot point. We're talking about Adam Fantilli, center over at the University of Michigan, and we're talking to Tony Ferrari about his strengths, his weaknesses, whether he can be an impact player straight away, and we also talk a little bit about the CPJ Michigan pipeline. So I'm just going to get right into my conversation with Tony. The Blue Jackets are doing their best to get that first overall draft position to draft Connor Bedard. You know, we've talked about it, but there's some pretty good consolation prizes if the draft lottery luck screws them over, or if they do the Blue Jackets thing and go on an end of season heater and win, I don't know, the last 8 games in a row. I feel like they've done that a couple of times. So if they end up drafting, you know, second, third, maybe fourth overall, there are some guys there that are probably pretty good consolation prizes, I would say. And today we're going to talk about one of those guys. We've already talked about him a little bit on the show before, but we're going to talk about Adam Fantilli today. And we have very smart man and notable bald draft analyst Tony Ferrari here to come and talk to us a little bit about Adam Fantilli and what kind of game he has, because I feel like it's a very fun one.
Yeah, he's a fun player. He's one of my favorite players in the entire draft. I've talked to him a number of times over the last few years, and every time I talk to him, I just realize how much smarter this kid is about the game of hockey and how just dialed in he is. At the end of the day, I think this guy is going to be a really good NHLer, a guy that can play at both ends of the ice. And I've said it a few times, but outside of this draft and then going back to maybe 2015 and 2016, where Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews were drafted, Adam Fantilli would probably be right up there with the first overall pick, probably easily taking the cake for most years. I think Jack Hughes would have given him a run, but for the most part, this is a guy that's a first overall talent.
Yeah, for sure. And I know everyone was really itching to kind of jump on is Fantilli gonna contest for first overall this year? And I feel like the World Juniors kind of put an end to that. But this kid is, I feel like every time his name comes up, there's another like highlight reel, or he's had another like 4-point game or something for Michigan. So like, what should we expect from this kid when he steps on the ice?
Well, I think he's going to go back to Michigan, if I'm not mistaken, for next season. I think he's going to play one more year there, come out at the end of the year, kind of similar to the way Kent Johnson, Owen Power did last year. Same with Matthew Beniers. And then he'll take his full rookie season in his D+2 season. But I think this is a guy that once he gets to the NHL, he's going to be an immediate impact two-way player, the kind of the way Matthew Beniers is. But he has a lot higher of an offensive upside. He's got an outstanding shot, a really good shot from all over the ice, plays with a high level of skill. He's able to kind of pull the puck in. I know everyone likes to joke about Connor Bedard and his toe drag release, but Adam Fantilli has that in his game as well. He's got the shooting angles and different ability to kind of manipulate the puck in the way he's shooting, whether it's off his front foot, his back foot. He's leaning off to one side. He's able to do it off balance. He does a little bit of everything as a goal scorer, and as a playmaker, he's really developed this year in particular. I think coming to Michigan, he kind of realizes I have talent around me. And it's not that he didn't with Chicago Steel. That's obviously one of the best junior teams in the world. but he's noticed, like, I've got these players that are a little bit more mature. These guys are a little bit more pro style players that are able to kind of play the game that I'm looking to play. And he's done a really good job of setting them up. I think him and Gavin Brindley, since they come back from the World Juniors, have been on an absolute tear together. I think Brindley has almost 15 points in the 8 games, and I think Fantilli has 20 or something around that number, if I'm not mistaken. So the way they've been tearing up the NCAA over the recent stretch of play has been pretty fun to see. And there's a reason at the end of the day, Fantilli is the highest scoring college player as a draft eligible since Paul Kariya, basically 30 years ago. A couple guys in the 80s that also did it, but all time he's 5th. He's doing it at over his scoring rate is at 1.88 per game. And Jack Eichel, who is a player that everyone gushed over in his college year, was only at 1.78. So it's still just everything this kid does seems to surpass everyone else around him.
Yeah, for sure. It's like I said, I feel like you said, literally any other year we'd be talking about this kid as the consensus number one, and can we draft him a year early and that kind of thing, which is in a draft where you've got Connor Bedard going first, you've probably got Adam Fantilli going second. I like Leo Carson a lot. I'm not sure he's gonna take over that spot. It's a good position for the Blue Jackets to be in, I think. Like no one enjoys it when your team sucks. I think no one thought the Blue Jackets were going to be this bad this season. But if there's a season to have all of these injuries and all of this bad luck and all of this poor play, like, I don't know, I'm not upset if the Blue Jackets end up with Adam Fantilli at the end of the season.
Yeah, I think that's the key is that if you're going to have a bad year, a year where obviously Johnny Gaudreau signed, everyone was expecting Ken Johnson, Kirill Marchenko, and all these other guys to come up and be impact players right away. And I think they've all done that to an extent. I think there was an expected step forward. I still think there was a lot of people that were expecting the Blue Jackets to maybe not make the playoffs, but kind of be there. But they haven't done that this year, unfortunately. They've had like a lot of injuries, like you said. It's just been a bad year for them overall. But like you mentioned, this is a good year to be bad because there are 4 guys at the top of this draft, probably 5 even, that are really good players. And I think as the Blue Jackets are probably going to do at the deadline where they sell off a few guys, maybe make some trades to acquire some more draft picks, there's players down the list that will also be really valuable players that if you're picking outside just in the 20 to 25 range, you're getting a top 15 pick in most years. I think this is a really deep draft as well.
In a minute, I have got more of my conversation with Tony, but first I've got to tell you about FanDuel, because the midway point of the NBA season is here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000, that means that you get bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It is safe, secure, super easy to use, and then you can bet on anything from the money line to point scorers, 3 drained. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/locked-on. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on, LOCKEDON, to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Yeah, I am. You mentioned Gavin Brindley earlier. He is definitely a guy that is on my list for maybe that kind of 15 to 20 range. I think he's a really fun potential depth pick. But I want to talk a little bit about, and this is probably going to be very similar to a conversation we had about this time last year, which is that the Blue Jackets need a #1 center. And I've seen some question marks about whether Connor Bedard could be more effective on the wing, whether he is that #1 center for whatever team he ends up being. But do you think Adam Fantilli could be that for the Blue Jackets? Is he a franchise #1 center in the way that, you see with Austin Matthews, Connor McDavid, even, Patrice Bergeron to an extent? Is he kind of going to be on that level, do you think?
I don't know if he's going to be on the level of those guys, but I do think he's going to be a true #1 center. I think, like you mentioned, the questions about whether Bedard's going to be more effective on the wing or at center, that's still up in the air. I do think he ends up as a center at the next level ultimately, but I could see him starting as a winger and kind of working his way towards being in the middle eventually down the road. With Adam Fantilli, I look at him a lot of the same way I look at a guy like Matthew Beniers, where I don't see this guy on the wing at all. It would take away from his game, to be completely honest, to put him on the wing. He has so much of his facilitating, so much of his ability to drive play comes from being that guy in the middle of the ice, out in space, working off of his teammates. And he does have a really good ability to kind of go into those corners in the defensive end and help the defenseman out. He's a smart defensive player in the right spots, great stick, understands how to start transition game, get the breakout going, and as well as kind of complete it on his own as well if he needs to. So I think Adam Fantilli is a true number one center. And if he goes into the Blue Jackets, I think he's a guy that you look at and you go, well, that kind of solves the position we've needed for a long time.
Yeah, I've been talking about it basically since I knew the Blue Jackets were gonna miss the playoffs. So about American Thanksgiving ish, how fun it's gonna be if we have a line of Johnny Gaudreau, Adam Fantilli, and Patrick Laine next season like that. Maybe I'm biased, but that feels like a lot of fun to me personally.
Yeah, that could be a really fun line because you have the guys that can kind of mesh a bunch of different skills together. Adam Fantilli would be, weirdly enough, as the youngest guy on that line, probably the defensive presence there and being the responsible two-way guy with the ability to be a shooter, be a playmaker as well. And then you have the ultimate playmaker in Johnny Gaudreau and the ultimate finisher in Patrick Laine. Be a really fun mix to see.
Yeah, that's I'm manifesting it. That's the energy that I'm putting out into this draft. Like, obviously, if you get first overall, you're picking Bedard, but I just think Adam Fantilli would be so much fun on this team. I want to talk a little bit about kind of the work that he has to do, because very few prospects obviously turn up in the NHL and are perfect immediately. You said he's going to go back to Michigan next season, probably. What does he have to work on before you think he is, not NHL ready? Because I think he probably will be NHL ready in October. But if he goes back to Michigan, like what are the things that you think he's going to work on in that year to kind of really make as big of an impact as he possibly can?
I think like any player his age, he's going to need to get a little bit stronger. He's a really strong kid at 6'2", almost 200 pounds. I think you refine that defensive game, understand how to be the guy like a Patrice Bergeron, able to affect things so much in that defensive zone. If he can up that tier, he could become a Selke level guy even. I think there's that ability there for him. He's not that now, but with further development and patience, I think he could become someone that's in that conversation. I think improving his vision, improving his shot, improving all these little things. He doesn't necessarily have a major weakness in his game because he's a fantastic skater, really strong kid, plays the power game, works off the walls extremely well, great shot, great passer, good defensive player. So there's not this one area where you look at and you go, that's a flaw. He's not really doing that properly, or he's not effective in this area of the game. But it's going to be about getting those tools to the next level so that when he does come to the NHL, whether it's October or whether it's April or May, he's a guy that's an immediate impact player and a guy that isn't necessarily having to go through those rookie slumps. And I think at the end of the day, any rookie's going to go through it. Connor Bedard will probably go through it in his own right, but it's going to be about kind of finding that consistency. And I think that's the biggest thing for him.
Yeah, for sure. I want to talk a little bit about the University of Michigan specifically, because it feels like they lost so many guys this year, obviously with Beniers, Power, Johnson, Brendan Brisson, Thomas Bordelot. Like, they all left, and I was like, man, maybe Michigan's not going to be that powerhouse this year. And they seem to have kind of taken that personally, and obviously picking up guys like Fantilli, Brindley. They kept Luke Hughes. Maki Samoskevich is still there, I believe. And it feels like they are just kind of perennially that powerhouse team. Like, is there a reason for that? Is it coaching? Is it that they just seem to get the right players that click? Like, can you give me like a little bit of insight into how exactly Michigan stays this annoyingly good year in, year out?
Well, I think one of the big things is they do always seem to have good coaching staffs in there. They understand how to kind of get the best out of their players. And one of the things they always preach to their guys is coming in, and we don't need you to stay 4 years. We'd love it if you do. It's not like Michigan football. I think Michigan football really preaches like come in, finish a Michigan Wolverine, blah, blah, blah. Michigan hockey's taken the other approach. They've gone, come in, play a couple of years. If you need to stay 2 more, great. We have you for 4 years. If not, then we get you on that Owen Power, that Adam Fantilli, that Matthew Beniers route, that Brendan Brisson route. That we can get you to the NHL. We've got a proven development system. They play a pro-style game. They understand how to get guys to the next level. They've got a really good development program, and they invest in their program. I think that's the biggest thing at the end of the day. They recruit really hard. They recruit highly skilled guys. They're not afraid to go for the guy that is a little bit undersized, such as a Gavin Brindley. they're not afraid to go for guys that are a little bit unrefined in the way that a guy like Ken Johnson was at the time, who was kind of a video game player, like I described him even on the podcast last year and the year before. It's interesting that they go for those high skill, high energy guys that they want to mold into the pro level player. And I think that's why they find the most success that they have.
In a minute, I have got more of my conversation with Tony about Fantilli and the University of Michigan development process. First, I have got to tell you about AG1. I use this product literally every day. I started taking it because I wanted more energy. I didn't have time to figure out, a handful of pills, vitamins, supplements that I had to take every single day. And AG1 is all in one, which is why I love it. So, what is it? Well, it is 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. It supports gut health, nervous system, immune system, energy, recovery, focus, aging, just all of the things that you need to feel better about starting your day. And right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. Just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That is it. There is no need for a million different pills or supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL network. Once again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Yeah, I mean, and the Blue Jackets have had success with Michigan players in the past. We mentioned Ken Johnson, Zach Werenski. Obviously, those are two big pieces of the University of Michigan in their, respective times there. Do you see Adam Fantilli, and we talked a little bit about him playing on that line with Gaudreau and Laine, but do you see him fitting into the Blue Jackets organization? Is this a development pipeline that you think he could succeed in, or do you think he would have success maybe on a different team with a different timeline of their rebuild? I guess I know that the Blue Jackets keep saying they're not rebuilding, they're retooling, but semantics. Is there a place for Adam Fantilli in the place that the Blue Jackets are at the minute, do you think?
I think there is. I think at the end of the day, we've looked at that Blue Jackets lineup for years now and gone, who is their number one center? Where is he coming from? Is he in the pipeline? And we haven't really ever been able to answer that question in recent years. And I think Adam Fantilli would answer that question. And at the end of the day, we've seen them use that Michigan pipeline, like you mentioned. We've seen them go to the college ranks and get guys like Nick Blankenberg, even, who they signed as a free agent. Like, there's so many ways you can get guys out of the college ranks. And Adam Fantilli would be a really good one to get for the Blue Jackets. And I think because he does play such a refined game already, he already is a pro level player, in my opinion. It's not this guy that you're necessarily having to get in there and worrying about kind of rebuilding around. He's a guy that can kind of get in there and in a retool, if you want to word it that way, and be a really good contributor almost immediately.
Yeah. So I did a similar thing here with about Connor Bedard. I do this every year. I try and get as many of these draft profiles or like scouting reports done as I can, because I like to talk to people much smarter than me about this, because I don't know enough because there's too many prospects. But we talked a little bit about kind of tempering expectations with Connor Bedard and not expecting him to come in and immediately be the savior of the Blue Jackets, if that's where he ends up, the savior of Chicago, Anaheim, wherever. Adam Fantilli, I feel like there's less tempering needed there. I feel like I don't know. I feel like the ceiling is much higher for Bedard, but I feel like Adam Fantilli is a more quantifiable piece. I feel like, if that makes sense. I feel like I'm not explaining this very well, but I feel like Adam Fantilli, you know what you're going to get with him in a way that I think a lot of people are still a little bit unsure of exactly how Bedard is going to translate to that NHL game.
Yeah, I think with Bedard, you look at a guy like that and at his size and go, is everything going to translate? The things that he's able to do at the WHL level, at the World Junior level, are all those things going to be able to come with him to the NHL? Because he is still a 5'9" guy who, yeah, he's stocky. He's 185 pounds at 5'9", but he's not a 6'2", 200-pound guy the way that Fantilli is. Fantilli's already a guy that's built into a man's frame. And like I said, he's going to put on more strength over the next couple of years as he matures physically as well. So I think with Fantilli, you look at it and you go, all right, there's a safe player here. If everything were to go wrong in Fantilli's game, you still have a really solid number 2 center, probably, in my opinion. I think if he's your number 3 center, it's unfortunate, but he's going to be the best number 3 center in the league. And that's if everything falls out and nothing kind of works out for him. If everything works out, you have the number 1 center you've been looking for years. With Connor Bedard, like we talked about earlier, is he going to be a winger at the next level? Is he going to be a center? What kind of center is he going to be? Is playmaking going to facilitate to the next level? Or is he going to be a better winger? There's questions around the role that he's going to play at the next level. With that said, I think Connor Bedard is going to come in and challenge Austin Matthews' rookie season, trying to put up 40 goals. He's going to try to put up 70, 80 points. He's going to be a guy that's a legitimate game breaker in his first year. I think Adam Fantilli might be a little slower to get to that game-breaking ability. I think he's a guy that could put up 20 goals and 30 assists next October and be a 50-point guy in year one as an 18, 19-year-old. But I think within time, you're going to see this guy be a 70-point center who plays a really good two-way game. And I think that's the nice thing about a guy like Adam Fantilli.
Yeah, for sure. I think, like I said at the beginning, obviously everyone wants Bedard. I'm not mad at all about the concept of Adam Fantilli as a like, oh no, we have to have Adam Fantilli. We drafted second overall, or whatever. I'm excited for this kid. I think even if he doesn't end up a Blue Jack, I'm going to be really excited to see where he ends up, what he ends up doing. Because I'm excited about Adam Fantilli.
Yeah, he's, like I said earlier, he's my favorite player in the draft, probably. I've talked to him a number of times, so I'm probably a little bit biased. It's just so fun to watch this kid do his thing. And especially you look at the World Juniors, everyone was obsessed with Connor Bedard's World Juniors, and rightfully so. The kid was unbelievable there. But Adam Fantilli had a really good World Juniors for a draft-eligible guy. He had a really big semifinal game, if I'm not mistaken. Showed a lot as a depth player, played a really solid defensive game, two-way game. There's a lot to like about a player like that, especially for a guy that's humble enough to take on that role. There's been a number of times we've seen in recent years where a guy that's a highly touted prospect gets put on that third or fourth line, and there's a little bit of sulk to their game. They don't appreciate the role that they've been given. So I love seeing a guy like Adam Fantilli going in there, taking care of business, and celebrating with fans afterwards.
And that's all I've got for today. Tomorrow we will be looking ahead to the game against the New Jersey Devils. We're going to be taking a look at some injury updates. Hopefully some guys are starting to get healthy, which can only mean good things for Blue Jackets. But that's gonna be tomorrow's episode. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Thank you for making it your first listen of the day every day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms. We're also over on YouTube. If that's more your thing, then feel free to hit subscribe. It helps me out. It helps you out. You get notified when new episodes go live. I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOB FORSTER. You can find the podcast at LO_Blue Jackets. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, you can email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.